We got 3 left. Alright. I hope to hell that I can stay coherent enough to get this one out. Yeah. Anyway, I was going to bed and I ran across a video and I didn't even watch it. I just saw the title and I was like, ah! Let me explain. So, complex PTSD versus PTSD. Okay, PTSD. You're in a war zone and you get your bell rung, or you are in a situation. So, I'm going to give you my situation. That, you know, I didn't get any injuries, but it scared the fuck out of me enough. Yeah. One of them. Anyway, there were several that happened on this tour. But this one in particular, I'm going to tell you a story. War stories! So there I was. I was a loadmaster. I was the person that got with the chief and his POL unit and got the Class 9, and we got it loaded, and we got the water buffalo, and we got the mail, and I got all of these systems loaded and ready to go for mission. Meanwhile, I was also tracking weapons and yada yada yada. I was all over the fucking place on this one tour. And the one guy, he had to go home. He was like, I gotta go out on mission. You know, I need to get some sleep and get a shower and yada yada. And I was like, we're good, because I set my own hours and I don't have to be anywhere until about 7 in the morning. So I'm going to go ahead and get all these systems hooked up. So there I am in the PLS, and I'm backing it up to the trailer, setting the system without a ground guide. Yes, because we broke the rules in Iraq, but I was out there by myself in the staging yard. And I was hooking the hippo to the Class 9 trailer, which required a little maneuverment, and basically we got it to the point where hippo was on the PLS and the Class 9 was on the trailer, and all I had to do was get them hitched, plugged up, and ready to go. And then I had to go over to the next one, same thing. Back up to the trailer, get them hitched, lock it in, plug up, and go. And we had incoming while I was doing the hippo. And the incoming is, and the incoming is coming, and I look and I see it going pop off, and I can see the little dust plumes, right? And I'm like, oh shit. So while we're working in this environment, we have to have our shit with us, which means we have to have our vest and our weapon and our, brain bucket. And I have my soft cap on, brain bucket's in the truck. I have my gear on, because that's the easy part. Wearing that all day is like nothing. And my weapon is in the truck. And I had stepped out to check the pintle placement, because it jaws like this, right? On a ring. So the ring comes in and the jaw grabs the hole. And then you put a pin in there and it locks it in. So basically I'm backing up the truck with the jaws. And the trailer's got the ring. And that is what I'm doing by myself. Because I was like, yeah, go, sleep. Better to be rested. I can do this stuff. This is easy shit. Even if it takes me extra time. I'm not paid by the hour. I'm in the military, right? So I'm like, I'll get this stuff set up for you, and you'll be good to go, and no worries, right? Well, then we get incoming. And the only thing I can think of is I am about to step out of the cab of this PLS, and I hear the sirens going off, and I hear boom, boom, and I look up, and there's plumes, and they are really fucking close. And yeah, I probably should have had a cab, but I didn't. It doesn't matter. It's not going to get me a job when I get out of the Army. Getting shot at is not going to get me a job, okay? So, I don't care. I'm like, oh, shit. So I grab my weapon from across, the little, like, platforming thing that we have in the truck. I grab it. I put my brain bucket on my head. I turn my PC around backward. I throw my brain bucket on, and I snap it. And I'm inside the truck. And I've got an armored truck, so I'm like, if it hits the truck, I'm probably okay. But I have got to get out of this truck and get over to the bunker for accountability. That is the big deal. That is the biggest deal. And I am not the only one out there. There are civilians coming out of this fucking building. And they are literally doing this shit. Crawling up underneath all of my equipment. I've got it all staged. And all I have to do is hitch everything. Right? And get it ready to go for the guys in the morning. I told everybody, just go. I can hitch this shit. It's my burden. Don't worry about it. I'm the load master. Anyway, these guys come out and they're all like, and there we are. And we're looking at each other like this. And I'm under the hippo. And I have my brain bucket on. And we're like, what the fuck? Where are these bullets going? Right? I'm just sitting there. And then when there's a pause, there's this like, and I'm looking at the dude across the way, and he's looking at me, and I'm looking at him, and he's looking at me. And we're like, so I like shimmy out from underneath the hippo, farthest away from where the incoming has come from, and I fucking jet it. And I get to the first bunker, and I'm sitting there, and I am like shaking. I'm like, they're like, you okay? I'm like, I'm gonna need help when this is all clear. They're like, what the fuck? I was like, I got 3 systems I still need to hitch. One of the girls, she's an amazing girl. Bodybuilder. She was actually the driver to the MRAP. And the dude that was, the PLS operator, whatever, he'd gone home to sleep. But she was just awesome. Her name was Kayla. Repo is what we called her. And she's like, you okay? And I'm like, fuck no. She's laughing, I'm laughing. I'm laughing, like, hysterically, like, traumatized laughing. That is PTSD. Alright? When you are experiencing death right before your eyes, like, there is a chance that you are going to fucking die. That was just one of the incidences. One incident was on my first tour. I was sitting in my arms room, and I hear the whistle of the round coming in, and I'm like, I'm inside a building, and I can hear it going, and then I hear tunk, and I'm like, I'm literally like bracing for impact, right? Like, all of my weapons and my MVGs and everything are crashing down around me. And I hear tonk. And the next thing you know, then the sirens go off. I get out in the bunker and we find out it's a dud. And it's literally in the middle of the road across from the airfield. Near death. Misses. When Warhorse let me see. I've got post-traumatic stress, and it wasn't a direct impact. It was just, holy shit, kind of, right? When we first got to Warhorse, we had, I can't even remember the total number. There were so many people affected that they picked the first 50 that submitted their sworn statements and pinned them with cabs, and the rest of the 900 fucking people that were involved didn't get nothing. I actually had somebody contact me through Facebook Messenger not long ago, within the last 12 months, saying, could you give me a sworn statement, peer, evaluated? And I said, I'll tell you what, there was 98% of that battalion was in that motor pool that day. And we were all crammed into those bunkers because they were insufficient, like sardines. If the incoming didn't kill us, the suffocation would have. We were in the safest spot. Me and a girl, her last name was Rivera, and a bunch of other people. We were doing TIs on trucks. And we were in this HESCO, and literally, we were the furthest away from everything, and we were in the safest fucking spot. And she was like, Sarn, we need to go. And I'm like, we need to stay the fuck right here. We need to go, accountability. And I'm like, you're right, that you're right about. So, we mashed it. Hung up against the walls, waited for incoming, boom, 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 and then ran again, and then boom, 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 and then ran again, and got into the bunkers out of breath. She got a cab, I didn't, and we were together. Because I didn't get my sworn statement in within the first 50 people across the colonel's desk. That was a little heartbreaking. It doesn't matter. Moving on. Alright, so we had Dud, we had me, Hitchin, we had that one, and there was one more. Hang on. I try not to think of this stuff. I try to put it in the back of my head. Alright, these are PTSD moments. These are traumatic moments that shock the shit out of you. And they shock your nervous system, right? Somebody who gets thrown out of their bunk because something hits close to their chew, rattles the ground, they land on the ground, kind of thing. It fucks with your nervous system. They may not have been injured, but the entire situation is like, complex PTSD is situations that are reoccurring. And not only did I have to deal with the trauma of combat, or the impending doom of combat, fear of, being in the military, depending on where you stand as far as, your social status goes, can be complex PTSD inducing. And I had an NCO who was vicious to me. Absolutely vicious to me. In my combat arms unit. And then I had a NCO while I was in the dental field under the medical who was completely vicious to me. Now, that one's kind of pacified only because a colonel went to bat for me. And I had another colonel eavesdrop on the situation, narked the situation out, went to that other colonel and said, we need to do something about this. Because that is wrong, right? And that guy got hemmed up. And they're like, yeah, we're going to sign your paper to be an officer, but you're never going to see dental again. Mm-hmm. So they signed his paperwork to be an officer, to go through OCS, to get him out of that dental clinic. Otherwise, we were never going to get rid of him. It was a training post, and even me, I was the only dental laboratory technician on that entire post for like 4 years. And I had to literally call a friend in from Fort Benning and be like, I need you to take my place so I can go to school. She goes, yeah, I did my school. They transferred me back while I was in Germany. She goes, you should have done your school years ago. I said, they'll explain it to you when you get here, why I'm not doing it until now. She was like, what the fuck? Yeah, it was because of that guy. Mm-hmm. So, I did get my advanced course in. Just saying, I did. But only because I had colonels. I was a specialist, for crying out loud. I had colonels going to bat for me. And I had a friend that actually I went to school with, EIT, that I knew of, that was at Fort Benning. She came in and filled in for me while I was gone. Complex PTSD is trauma. And it doesn't have to be physical. It doesn't have to be psychological. Emotional. Psychological is probably a little bit better. Sexual and emotional probably fit the bill best. But it's chronic. It's chronic endearment. And you're exposed to it over and over and over again. And there's no escape. It's not like you can just walk away from the situation. You're exposed to it in a way that you feel as though your feet are literally glued to the ground, and you have to physically sit and take it. And then when they say, okay, you can go, and you walk away, there's no resolve. It's stuck there. Now, it can also be, I'm going to give an example that doesn't pertain to me, but it's an example that a lot of people can probably relate to. You are experiencing sexual abuse, you tell, and they don't believe you. And you are denied that vindication of, this happened to me. And they look at you like you got four heads and antenna, and they deny that, oh no, that person could never do that. That causes complex PTSD. What also causes complex PTSD is the sexual abuse and or abuse of any kind occurs, and you are blackmailed and or threatened preceding it. If you tell, this is going to happen. So you keep your mouth shut and you hold in the trauma and you don't tell until decades later. And when you do tell, people don't believe you. That causes complex. Psychological, emotional abuse. I can say that a lot of my complex PTSD comes from my upbringing. And not all of it is from my mother. Or the parenting. Yeah, my mom is a huge factor. But a lot of it is basically siblings. And I was like hypersensitive. So they're picking and then not having parents defend me. So my siblings picking on me or treating me like I was normal, and I wasn't. Me getting upset, them dismissing it, and my parents dismissing it. And dismissing my emotions, that causes complex PTSD. That happened a lot. I'm 54 years old. I'm giving these examples trying to look back on times when I was like age 4 through teenage years. I'm gonna burp. Hang on. Yeah, because we're on like beer 7. There it is. Feel better now. Complex PTSD is complex. That's why they call it complex. It involves many, many, many different scenario variables, incidences, either involving the same person or multiple people repeatedly. And in situations where the victim happens to be vulnerable in either speaking out or having to hold it in for fear. In fear of consequence that they themselves didn't necessarily bring on. It just, my mom was, a disciplinarian. I grew up in the Gen X era. A lot of the stuff that we experience as Gen Xers, is like literally ACS would be, PCS would be ripping us out of the household. It was normal back then. However, some people, like myself, who had traumatic birth, came out of the womb hypervigilant and neurodivergent, experience these type of things and do not recover from these type of things in the same way as a normal person would. Point blank. So, did I grow up in a normal lifestyle? Yeah, because I was treated normal. Therefore, they thought I was normal. Now, my one sister, we had smoked. We were like heavy, heavy smokers. All of us, except for the first child. And she quit. And funny, she gets diagnosed with ADHD. And she's like, yeah, I gotta take Adderall. I was like, you know what? If they told you that to help your brain with ADHD, they need you cut in your brain, you would let them. And she just looked at me. I was like, you do whatever your practitioner tells you to do. You don't look nothing up. Nothing. I said, I'm ADHD. I don't take Adderall. I've been ADHD my whole life. Before cigarettes. Cigarettes actually calmed it down. So yeah, I will continue to vape. Coffee calmed it down. I will continue to drink coffee. I said, but I ain't you. I don't let my doctors cut me open and zap me and do whatever the fuck they want. I look that shit up. I make them sit and stew. And if I find wrong in it, I call patient advocacy and say, no, I ain't doing this. I said, they're going to kill you with medicine. I said, you must be suicidal. And her jaw went to her lap. And that was at my mom's birthday. I said, I don't let them do anything to me until I research it first. And that's the difference. Same family, same parents, same upbringing, different experiences. Yep. My sister will take whatever they give her. She'll do whatever tests they tell her. If they tell her she's got stage 0 breast cancer and they want her to do chemo, she's going to go, okay, sign me up. I'm going to go in and be like, I want all my images. And they look at me and I'm like, yeah, because I've got secondary insurance and I'll go get a second opinion. Every single fucking image that they have done on me for the past 10 motherfucking years has come up negative. Because I request them. So if they want me to do anything weird, I go to my insurance, I find a private practitioner, and I have them evaluate it and tell me otherwise. Because if my private practitioner isn't going to make any money, knowing they aren't going to make any money, because all of my treatment is going to be done through the VA, they're going to tell me the truth. This is a symptom of complex post-traumatic stress disorder. We trust no one. So if you really want to know what complex PTSD looks like, you're looking at it. Oh no, I have combat PTSD too. But the complex PTSD, that is what makes up the entirety of my personality. Y'all have a great night. The weekend's coming, so God knows what tomorrow's going to bring. Yeah, we got a night pour. Yeah, I think it's 1,400 yards. I'm curious to how they plan to manage to do that. Yeah, maybe I'll get 72 hours next week. My body is hating it, but my bank account is loving it. Peace. Be safe, y'all. Pray for each other.